Welcome to the shop. Well, we've been having a lot of fun lately with a rocking chair course. We're actually just over halfway, and recently we cut some slots for the slats. Check it out over here. Here's the actual rocker, and this is one of these corresponding legs. So you can see it's a ladderback Canterbury style shaker rocking chair. And when coming to this part, you know, you're thinking, how am I going to cut those slots? A lot of times they did them by hand. You know, we've seen a lot of old ones that were chopped by hand. You could cut them on a hollow chisel mortiser. There's a lot of ways to do it, but doesn't it seem nice if you could use a router? You'd get that nice clean cut, nice clean easy plunge cut. But you need to have it under control and you want to have some accuracy. So there's the need for the jig. This one is actually quite simple to make. It's got a core, inner core of a piece like this. So it's 2 inches thick by 2 3/4, and it's 27 inches long. That can vary depending on the piece. And the sides happen to be 1 inch thick by 3 1/4. So that works well for this type of post. But what I'm about to show you is very customizable. So you can make it whatever size and length you need to. We've made large ones for routing dovetails into columns of tables, if you remember. Similar project to this. Now the key of it, to hold that round, is this V-groove cradle, this center element here. Now, usually that would be enough. If you had the sidewalls, you think, okay, I could just clamp it in place and then route it. Well, if you're going to clamp it in place, then you have to have a clamp overhead somehow. So you can see these little orange straps. These are my answer for getting the clamping method out of the way. So the piece will be held under these straps with these little ratchet clamps that I'll explain later. And it'll be ratcheted in there. And then you'll have clean access to the top to plunge to your heart's content. I mean, after this, you're just going to be dangerous with slot cutting. But it's especially useful for making these types of chairs. And maybe you'll want to make a chair after too. So anyway, we're going to cut the V groove, and we're going to make this little notch for our strap here in case we want to use that, and then we're going to glue it up. But to get started making this, we've got to head over to the table saw. So let's go on over. So we've got our table saw, and I've already tilted the blade over to 40 degrees because that trough, you could make it 45. It would be fine for a small post like this. But I just find that little flatter V groove works better. But it doesn't require as thick a material to get a nice solid V groove. If I did it as a 45, it would be pretty easy. We would just lay it over. But let's say I want to make it at a 40, and I do. I'm going to lay it out on the end here first, and then we'll set up our saw. So let's say we want to put our V into this end, something like this, but it's going to be a little bigger, but that's going to show us where. I know from making the other one that I want like a 1/2 inch little flat on each side. So something like this. I'll just get it on the face. Okay, so if I just mark my 40, and I'm going to come in this way, so I've got that flatter angle to mark it, because I'm going to cut it in this orientation here. So that will work. Okay, so now I'm going to just find the center line of 2 and what did I say, 2 3/4? So I want to go 1 3/8. We'll find our center. Okay, so ignore this line here. This is over. We're going to be cutting in on this line, and we know we want our cut to stop right at the center line. So if we check the height of this, we are, say, 1 3/8. Okay, so let's get our blade height to 1 3/8. Yeah, that's good. All right, so I've got the height right, I've got the line right, and now I just have to set up the fence. Now this is one of those situations where to make the desired cut, you have to cut on the side of the fence I'm not as comfortable with. It's more for like a left-hander. So I'm going to be on the opposite side of the fence. So I'm going to set it up here, and we'll tap it over a little bit. I've got it just about all the way locked down. And then I can move it by tapping. You know how when you go to tighten your saw, you tighten it and then your saw moves? If you get it right down close to tight, but not tight, and then you can tap it, and then when you hit it, it won't move. Okay, all right, so there we are. That should be where we want to be. Now, I got to think about making this cut. It feels, it's not a common cut. With the blade leaning in on the fence like that, that's the way the old deltas were when they tilted the other way, and people often cut into the fence. I would be doing this kind of left-handed. You know, I'm not as comfortable this way. So I have to decide, do I want to feed this way? Do I want to feed this way? Well, I could feed this way, feels comfortable, but I want to hold it nicely against the fence. So let's put a little feather board in there to give us added reassurance. I'm just going to spring this hedgehog. I love this. It's this brand, you know. It's obviously perfectly named, but it's nice. It's a round feather board. You know, I've got flat ones too, but this one's nice when you just want to sneak it in there and get it in there quick. And here we go. All right, so I think we're ready. I'm going to make one pass this way, and then I'll flip, and I'll make the other pass this way, and we should get our V cut. All right, let's get our gear on. Here we are. Okay, now, you remember those straps were coming through? We need to just cut some quick slots to accommodate for the strap option if you want to go that way. So I'm going to just get the saw up here. And I only need to be about an 1/8 inch deep for this. So let's just drop this down. I'm just going to make a series of quick cuts and notch this out. That should be enough. Lock it in so it doesn't drop on me. Okay, so let's see. I want it just to be on the sides, really. That's all we need. And then the strap will come up and go over the workpiece. So I made a couple little marks right here before we started. I'm at like 5 3/4 and then to 7. So we want to notch this area right here. So I don't have to mark them all out. If I just set that to the slot here, that's the one side of the cut, and I'm going to mark over here with these little lines. Then I'll slide it over to the other side of the cut, and I want to come to this side of the kerf. So I'll make another mark over here. So I don't have to mark it out. I'm just going to use, see these little scribbles? Now these are my guideline. So that's it. Let's go ahead and get our gear on. Okay, so now let's put this together. It's pretty quick. These are our side walls, as we talked about. They're 3 1/4 inch thick, also 27 long. So these are going to go on just like that. So you can see how that's going to nicely support a round like this. See how it's nicely cradled? It's not going to move anywhere, and it has to be below the plane of the sidewalls. So you got to make sure you make your sidewalls high enough for whatever you're designing yours for. And now we can just glue it up. So let's just get some glue on one side at a time. This will be, choose this up. Okay, we'll just get, we don't need a ton on here. All right, we'll get one side on at a time. And these are nice and true. These should be exactly the same plane so that your router rides nicely. All right, just get that rubbed in. And clamping stuff like this, you know, it wants to slide around. I could just nail this totally off. I would like to put some clamps on it, but let's hold it with, you could pin nail it, but these are 18 gauge. It's so greasy when it first goes on, that glue. Wants to slip everywhere. Okay, you want to make sure Yeah, that feels flush. And come down to the other end. Beautiful. All right, that'll hold that for now. Let's get some more glue. And this side. This won't fit there.
Tom, Michael's curious if the chair leg is not straight, designed with a curve in it. With a slight curve, does this jig still work?
It works for this leg. I mean, it does get to the point where it starts to curve a little, but it throws that bottom slat slightly out of the center, but I actually think it's not a problem at all.
But on another leg that might have a more distinctive curve.
Might
cause some.
Yeah, you'd have some issues there, obviously. You have to have another way of doing it. I forget. Some of you who made these chairs are probably thinking of the methods already that you've used.
This is pine, Tom?
Yeah, this is just white pine, so inexpensive but pretty stable. Nice stock. There it is. So I'm really nice and flush all on the bottom. I'll hit it with another couple nails, and then I'm going to just throw a few clamps on there. I got to make sure I don't hit where my straps are. That's always fun. All right, so I'll just set it. Let's just get a few clamps on there. Just going to put them right in the middle of the height there to maintain parallel, so that lower, this block was nice and parallel as well when I ripped it. All right, that looks good. Okay, so we've got all our clamps on. You can see we've got nice squeeze out all the way. And that's going to be rock solid, perfect jig. But the last thing I would do to improve this is when the workpiece goes in there, like let's say we're cutting something like this, when you go to strap it down, it's kind of slick. See, it wants to roll, and it's, if you had to position it exactly, when you go to tighten the clamps, it's going to keep moving it. So all you need to do is cut some sandpaper in strips. I just happen to use some of this 320. I just knifed it using a rule, about 1 inch wide, and I put a bunch face down on a piece of paper and sprayed it with this adhesive. And just this 3M adhesive, and then I just stuck these right on the sides, and that's why you have it looking like this. Now when you go to clamp this down, that makes a world of difference. So when you go to clamp, it doesn't want to move at all. It's got that nice bite in there. So there you go. All right, so let's get this one aside, and I'll just show you how it works quick.
Now, if you were cutting these slats by hand, would you use a jig like this, or would you secure it in another way?
I mean, having a V-jig is nice to hold your stock one way or another. It's hard, it's difficult to hold round stock without a V-groove jig. So just to make them like this, so this is just another piece, they're really handy. So this one I use as a cradle for bandsawing the slot for the bridle joint. So it's nice to just have, and this is actually just the same size as the core of this.
And you have a third one for the drill press.
Yeah, we have a different setup for the drill press, and this is all covered. I mean, how to use these in the course. So this one,
They're noted on the plans.
yeah, has another V-groove, but I'm using these toggling clamps, and this is really handy. These help adjust the angles, because when you're at the drill press, you've got to get all these at the correct angle to one another. And this is a nice method for the drill press. And there again, the sandpaper works great. All right.
So, Tom, wait 1 second.
Yeah.
David's curious, is releasing the ratchet clamps tricky when they're under tension?
Not really. I'll show you. I use these ratchet clamps, and I've made larger clamps before, and I was able to get by with, using this type of ratchet clamp. And I was trying to think, how else did I do it? Because I've had a bunch of these, and some of them are quite large. So having an S-hook like this to lock underneath was no problem. But I don't have enough room for that on this one. I'm just got a small little clamp. I could make a larger block that would accommodate for the S-hook. But what I did was I had some old ratchet clamps, and I just cut off this short side here. I just cut it, and I used just this amount of, I cut it up here, and I used just this amount of strap. I looped it and got rid of the other long strap. So here are the hooks that I ended up cutting off, and now I just ratcheted it back to itself. So it gives me a nice size loop for just making these chairs, and they're dedicated for this. Now, I did screw a block onto the bottom, and that gives you, and it's offset, as you can see, so I have room for the ratchet clamps, and I can put it in the vise. So I just set it down here, get it right between, and then I could just lock it in. Now I have a good place to work. So I'll get this in. I think I've got enough slack. So I just do a little demo cut on this. Let's say right between these are where we want to go. Like on the shaker rocker, you have these cut lines that indicate the range of the slot. So I'll route, and I want to make a hard line here that I can see better than that, just to stop my routing, and I can chisel to the end cleanly, okay? So I'm going to lock this in. And get this in. So I'm getting a little bit of the ratchet movement here. Feels like I'm just about to get another one, but that's pretty locked in. I'm not going to go anywhere with that. Okay. Now, my router setup is a little unconventional because usually when I use this method, I prefer to have a plexiglass plate on my router so I can double stick tape the guide runners. Centering the router, you can plunge down with a smaller bit or so and make sure it's centered in the V groove, and then get your guide runners double stuck tape to the sides, and then you know you're locked in for plunging. You can use your adjustable fence on your router on one side and then put the guide on the other. But I recently dropped my router or something. I broke my plate that fits this router. So I'm just, I've got broken plates all over the place. So I was able to clamp it, but I don't have a lot of space. So I'm double stuck tape, and I've got these little quick grips on there just for insurance to keep it in place. But it is centered already, and I got a little bit of play from that, but I'm going to just hold it to one side. So for this demo, so I'm going to just come down. I'm hitting, and let's see what my depth is. I'm hitting, so I'll zero out, Let's get my depth stop down to the point. Now I can get it on 0. And I've been cutting these slots 7/8 deep. So with it on 0 now, I can raise it up. This is my stop. I'm raising it up 7/8 off of the stop point. So right there, I'm going to lock it in. All right, so that's going to give me a 7/8 depth cut. Okay, get my gear on. Here we go. All right, so there's our slot, nicely cut there, and I've got, now I would just chisel cleanly. So I'll just square up one end here, and I'll show you one of the other finished legs. Okay, so I just square it up on each end, and I'd end up cleaning up my slots just like that. So it's nice, while it's right here, you can get a good chop on it. Go straight down. And then you have the knife cut line for your perfect index. Set your chisel.
Tom, was that a spiral upcut bit?
Yes, it was. It's a carbide. They're making some really nice router bits these days. That one happens to be all carbide. This one is not, but it's got a nice coating on it. But look at how, just the way they're made now, they're so much nicer. This is a 1/4 inch. But anyway,
Okay, I have another question.
let me pop this out.
I thought you might have covered this, but I don't understand it probably. Daniel's asking, how do you index the workpiece to make sure all the slots are in the same line?
Are in the what?
In the same line.
Index it. Well, I would clamp this in all at once. That's why I actually made it this long. So I could clamp this in and I get all of them are in the same line, right? But in this chair, it's actually a little more than that. In the course, we talk about a lot about the angles, obviously. So this is the back rail and stretcher location of the mortise for that rail. And these are actually coming at a slight angle because you can see from the chair here, pop that seat off. You can see these are the seat angles that I'm talking about, the rail. And then this is coming in at actually like a 17-degree angle is what we have coming in here. So that has to be carefully like rotated, and that this hole with a set dowel is put in there and set at 17 degrees off of 90, and then it's locked in, and then these are plunged. There you have it, a crash course in a jig to hold round parts for running slots. You could do plunge. You could plunge rounds if you wanted, whatever you want to do. Hey, if you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe. And check out what we got going on epicwoodworking.com. I hope you enjoyed that like I did. We look forward to seeing you, the camera lady and myself, next time, right back here on Shop Night Live. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.